Welcome back. Let's continue with our lecture on mathematical physics. In the last lecture, we have seen the residue theorem and how to use it for evaluating the complex integral. In this class, let's look at more example and especially how to use the residue theorem for evaluating the integrals of real valued function. Integral using the residue theorem. This is a course of PH 3103 at ISAR Calcutta, and we are going to use residue theorem to integrate the real valued function. Let's quickly remind ourselves of the residue theorem. If you have a complex contour integral f of z dz, and if the function has a finite number of isolated singularities within the contour, then the contour integral is given as a 2 pi I times the sum of all residues inside the contour. So it's a simple and straightforward to use. Let's first look at the integrals of the form integral 0 to 2 pi arbitrary function f of cos theta and sin theta d theta. Now we can convert easily this integral into complex integral because of the relation between the cos and sin theta with the function e power I theta. Now we use the contour unit circle around origin, that is mod z is equal to 1, and parameterize the complex number z is equal to e power I theta. Now we have integral 0 to 2 pi, and we can have a dz can be written as I into e power I theta d theta, and cos theta can be written as e power I theta plus e power minus I theta divided by 2. Same way, sin theta can be written as e power I theta minus e power minus I theta divided by 2. These are the standard expressions which are often used, and we can use this expression to invert and write cos theta and sin theta in terms of z, and the expression for that is d theta becomes dz by I into z, cos theta becomes half of z plus 1 by z, sin theta becomes 1 by 2 pi into z minus z. So idea here is to take a function f of cos theta sin theta and replace cos theta by half z plus 1 by z and sin theta by 1 by 2 pi z minus z to the power minus 1. So integral 0 to 2 pi f of cos theta sin theta d theta becomes a contour integral over the contour C, which is a unit circle centered around z is equal to 0, and f of z is written as a function of z and z to the power minus 1. And once we have that, we look at all the singularities within this contour based on the function f, and then we use the residue theorem to evaluate the integral. The best way to understand is taking up a simple example. Let's evaluate the integral 0 to 2 pi 1 by 2 plus cos theta to the power 2 d theta. Now simple substitution we got to do, d theta as a dz by I into z, cos theta as a half of z plus 1 by z, and sin theta as a 1 by 2 pi I z minus z to the power minus 1. In this case, integral 0 to 2 pi 1 by 2 plus cos theta square d theta takes the value of integral over the contour C, which is a unit circle centered around z, 2 plus half z plus z by 1 square into dz by I times z. So we can do a bit of simplification and rewrite this as a contour integral over the contour C plus z square plus 1 divided by 2z whole square into dz divided by I z. We can rewrite that as a minus 4I contour integral over contour C z by z square plus 2z plus 1 square dz. Now we got to see where are these the singularity of this function. this is a quadratic function, we can simply write down in terms of their root. We can see that the z square plus 4z plus 1 has 2 roots, minus 2 plus or minus square root of 3, and the function z square plus 4z plus 1 can be written as a z minus and z minus z plus, where z plus or minus is given as a minus 2 plus or minus square root of 3. Now the contour integration z by z square plus 4z plus 1 is simply written as a z by z minus square plus z minus z plus square over the contour C. Let's look at the value. Square root of 3 is approximately 1.7, and from this we get z minus is approximately equal to minus 3.7 and z plus as approximately as a minus 0.3. Now if we look at the contour, we have two isolated singularities. One is at z plus and another is z minus. And we have a unit circle, and we see only one of them, z plus, is inside the contour and z minus is outside, and we don't have to worry about it. Now let's take the integral of this function. We have to simply compute the residue of f of z as z plus and multiply it by 2 pi I. The 2 pi I is missing here, has to be 2 pi I times the residue. So let's compute the residue. It's a pole of order 2 at z plus. We have to evaluate it. Residue is in this case, because of pole of order 2, it is multiplied by z minus z plus square f of z, differentiate once and then take z going to z plus 1. So this we find that it takes the value of 1 by 6 into square root of 3. It's a straightforward to do this calculation. One can simply substitute the function value and evaluate it, and one get the value of this. And the integral takes the value of the integral 4I over the contour integral z by z square plus 4z plus 1 square dz is equal to minus 4I into 2 pi I residue of f of z at z plus. This is given as 4 minus 4I into 2 pi I into 1 by 6 square root of 3, and the integral 0 to 2 pi 1 by 2 plus cos square theta dz takes the value of 4 pi 3 root 3. This is a simple way of evaluating the integral of a functions of trigonometric variable. Now let's look at the real integral of the from minus infinity to plus infinity f of z dz. Now let's look at the evaluation of integral of the form integral minus infinity to plus infinity f of z dz. We have a function f of x is a real valued function defined in the interval from 0 to infinity. The improper integral I1 is equal to integral 0 to infinity f of z dz is defined as a limit I is equal to 0 to infinity f of z dz is equal to limit r going to infinity 0 to r f of x dx, and this is going limit r going to infinity, and if this limit exists, then the integral I1 is said to be convergent, otherwise it is divergent. In the similar fashion, we can also define the integral from minus infinity to 0, the improper integral I2 from minus infinity to 0 f of z dz is defined as a limit r going to infinity minus r to 0 f of x dx. Again, it is important to note that the integral is convergent if this limit exists, otherwise the integral is divergent. Now we can look at the integral from minus infinity to plus infinity f of x dx can be written as integral minus infinity to 0 f of x dx plus integral from 0 to infinity f of x dx, or it is I2 plus I1, is convergent if integral I1 and I2 are convergent. If either of integral I1 or I2 are divergent, then the integral is also divergent. Now there is an important thing to notice here, that we can write this limit r going to infinity minus r to 0 f of x dz plus 0 to r f of x dz can be written as limit r going to infinity integral minus r to plus r f of x dx. Now it is clear that the I1 and I2 can be converged, then only integral minus infinity to plus infinity f of x dx exists. But in this case, we may have this limit which is going from minus r to plus r going to infinity f of x may be convergent even when one of the I1 or I2 is divergent. Though it is sometime look non-trivial, but it is interesting to see that if you take the odd function, then what happens is that the integral, this r going from minus r to plus r going to infinity, is 0 for plus r and minus r, and it vanishes. And if you take the limit r going to infinity, it is going to converge, or to takes the value of 0. But the individual integral I1 and I2 are non-convergent because integral diverges, because if it is an odd function which is monotonically increasing, then this integral would diverge. But some of these integral essentially taken in this form would be converging. So one has to careful and accommodate this fact too. Now this can be easily demonstrated with the function f of x is equal to x. We have a limit r going to infinity minus r to plus r f of x dx goes to 0. We know that the limit r going to infinity integral minus r to plus r f of x dz goes to 0. In this case, integral f of x going from minus infinity to plus infinity looks convergent if we look at if we evaluate using the limit r going to infinity minus r to plus r f of x dz. But as per the definition, we need both I1 and I2 to be convergent to have this integral f of x dx minus infinity to plus infinity to be convergent. This is not a sufficient condition. Definition of a Cauchy's principal value. The Cauchy's principal value integral is defined as Pv minus infinity to plus infinity f of x dx is given as a limit r going to infinity integral from minus r to plus r f of x dx. An important note regarding the Cauchy principal value, when we have an integral of the form minus infinity to plus infinity f of x dx converges, its Cauchy's principal value is same as the value of integral. If the integral diverges, then it may possess as a Cauchy principal value. So this we have already shown for the function such as an odd function f of x is equal to x. We see that the integral from minus infinity to plus infinity f of x dz does not converge because individual integrals I1 and I2 are not convergent. But Cauchy's principal value of the integral is converges because of the odd function values getting exactly cancelled out with respect to each other. So this is clearly defines that if the integral converges, then its value must be same as a Cauchy's integral. But if the integral diverges, it is not necessary that the Cauchy principal value do not exist. It may be still finite. So look at the way of evaluating the real function from minus infinity to plus infinity f of x dx using the residue theorem. To evaluate the integral f of x dx from minus infinity to plus infinity, the function usually of the form of p of x by q of x. You know that the function f of x itself is continuous on a real axis, that is from minus infinity to plus infinity. Now, first thing to do is we replace the real variable x by a complex variable and use the residue theorem for integrating the f of z over a closed contour C. Contour C that consists of an interval from minus r to plus r on real axis and the semicircular arc C of r of radius r large enough to enclose all the poles of f of z is equal to pz by qz in the upper half plane of imaginary z is equal to greater than 0. So this is a basic idea to use. It's a lot of word. Let's use a picture to simplify this or explain this how it is going to happen. So we have a function f of x which is now written as a complex variable f of z is equal to pz by qz. We know that there are singularity is not on y is equal to 0 or x axis because the function f of z is a continuous on the real x axis. So we don't have any poles on that. The poles are scattered along positive and negative z plane. The y axis is the imaginary z. The positive z is the upper half of y axis and the negative z is the lower half of negative axis. So we have a scattered singularity over the z plane and we have no singularity on x axis or y is equal to 0 plane. In order to take the integral, we use contour about imaginary z greater than 0 or the positive y axis and ignore the negative y axis. For taking the integral from minus infinity to plus infinity, what we do is we look at the singularities of the function f of z is equal to pz by qz. We map them all on the complex plane, that is we take contour r such that including the real line from minus r to plus r and the semicircular arc on the upper y axis such that it includes all the singularities in the positive imaginary axis, and then take the contour integral over the contour of this semicircular region f of z dz. We know that that is given by the residue theorem 2 pi I into sum of all residues inside the contour. Ignore all the singularities in the lower y axis, and this contour can be split as two contours, that is along the real axis for r going from minus r to plus r f of x dz plus a contour over the circular arc CR f of z dz. Now by some means, if the contour integral over the contour CR f of z dz goes to 0, and then we are left with the principal value, that is f of minus infinity to plus infinity f of x dx is equal to r going to infinity integral minus r to plus r f of x dz is equal to 2 pi I times the sum of all residues inside this half circular region in the positive imaginary axis. So this is a mechanism to evaluate the integral of a real valued function. Now we'll look into some of the example. This idea get more clearer after we take some of the examples. We will look at the examples in the next class.